we're back. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another show, another episode of TruthWire. I'm here with my co-host for today, Matt Weinglass. Pasta and I keep missing each other, but I'm sure we'll be back together again shortly. Matt, how are you? How are things in La La Land?
Yeah, great. Holding it down in LA here on the west side. How's everything on your side of things?
It's pretty calm here, actually, where I'm at. It kind of lies to you about the rest of the world. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic because it's certainly not calm out there in terms of things happening. And I think a lot of us have been kind of waiting for something to happen. And there are, Syria's still ongoing with the internal regional fights. And there's a lot happening in Russia, Ukraine, in terms of what we're going to talk about today. I think I'm going to venture to make a few assessments here regarding Zelensky's, I would say Zelensky's time left as a U.S. puppet. I think that's coming to an end. And, we're going to talk a little bit about that. There's also, obviously, what we're going to talk about is the Tulsi Gabbard, what I think is a distraction. Russiagate is almost 10 years old now. We're talking about this has been going on for a long time. And yes, we agree that it's absolutely 100%. It was a complete and total fabrication. But the way things are being weaponized on both ends of the spectrum, both by the Republicans and the Democrats, is something I think we need to further push on, because people are getting really sucked into, once again, the team sports mentality that we talk about here. And then there's this gigantic AI push slipped in by Washington that most people aren't paying attention to. And I think it's just a continuation of the Trump administration's push towards deregulation, but in favor of essentially removing all barriers to bring in a more technocratic surveillance state that we're going to be seeing, just not in the United States alone, but pretty much everywhere in the world. And it's not, to exaggerate. That is exactly what's happening. So anything else to say before we jump right in it, Matt?
These are the stories we have to talk about. We covered some of this yesterday on the Homeless Left, and I just think that the fact that the general public isn't seemingly concerned about what you just mentioned, the AI surveillance state. It's a global issue. It's affecting the entire world population, and they're distracted by these things that the mainstream puts in front of us by throwing these headlines on the TV. And there's just not enough, at least on this side of the planet. We get the sense there's more people waking up to this in other parts of the world. But right here, we still have people playing these tribal politics, and enough is enough. And we can't keep going through this cycle every single 4 years. We have to start understanding that they're all in on it together. If the Epstein thing isn't the indicator for everyone that they're all in on it together, then I don't know what it's going to take. But we have to start coming together, a real populist movement, and call this stuff out. The AI, the surveillance state, these endless wars, the U.S. Israel, war machine, and of course the censorship and the silencing of free speech. We have to all be on that same side, regardless of if you agree or disagree with people on what their beliefs are. We have to be on the same side about the right to express yourself and just those basic human rights. Those go beyond rights of being an American in this country. Those are just basic human rights, the right to express yourself. So those are all the things in jeopardy, and that's why it's so good to be doing shows like this, Fiorella, TruthWire, covering the real important stuff, and then calling out when they're doing the tribal politics and the distractions, because that's also important too.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on, Matt. So why don't we just get started? This is something I want to talk about, and make sure you're all sharing the stream, because like I said, we're trying to get back in the algorithm. We're outside of it. We're demonetized. So make sure to share the stream both on X, Rumble, and also, by the way, on YouTube as well. So, okay. So there has been now for a while this ongoing push to get rid of Zelensky, because he symbolizes what's corrupt in Ukraine. He symbolizes the failures also of Ukraine. So I don't think he's going to last long, but Beyond that, there have already been protests. And if you can just play the protest silently, the video, Jayme, so I'll talk through it. There have been some protests, not just against Zelensky, but against some of the actions that he has taken. And they've continued in Kiev last night and throughout the day. And what I think this is regime change and action. Now, that doesn't mean that people aren't genuinely upset at Zelensky, but that there has been an effort and a push by Washington to oust him for a multitude of those reasons that I just mentioned, and also the fact that he obviously is inflexible in a lot of these things. And the United States, a CIA apparatus, always dumps their puppet, right? They always eventually get rid of them. We could look back to Saddam Hussein. We could look back to multiple times when the United States has interfered in a country and then eventually just discarded that person when they have been rendered useless at that point. And we can look at Jolani to see what the future holds for him in Syria. So I want to talk a little bit more about this. So people were demanding the immediate reinstatement of the anti-corruption laws. These were the anti-corruption agency that had full powers, and so Zelensky basically cut them. And Western media has actually been pushing the narrative to replace Zelensky, and this is primarily why I think this is a manufactured push, not so manufactured that he doesn't have this hatred towards him, but in an effort, of course, with Washington, with the media, the legacy media that's there. And this is because Zelensky just pretty much discarded and got rid of these laws. And so people were really upset about that. They were shouting hands off Nabu and SAP. They were referencing, of course, the anti-corruption agencies that Zelensky just took over. So Zelensky's pretty much falling in the trap of acting like a totalitarian leader. And Washington and the West and NATO can come in and say, Zelensky's not doing his job. We support his removal in order to, quote unquote, restore democracy. Now, this would work in many ways because it would allow the United States to essentially wash their hands off of the failure of the Ukraine war. It would allow NATO to do that. And I think it would also enable them to find some sort of negotiation with Russia, because as this was happening, there have also been talks with Russia, Ukraine, and also there's going to be a conversation held moderated by, I think, Erdogan. And well, Erdogan is negotiating this as well, but it's going to be Trump, Putin, and Zelensky. That's just been today's news about how this is going to happen. So I do think that what we're seeing here is a form of at the very least, an attempt to push out Volodymyr Zelensky and to replace him. Now, Seymour Hersh did an article where he suggested that, according to his sources, the person to replace Zelensky would be Valery Zaluzhny. But I have to say that this has been the talk now for years since I've been in Russia. They've been touting or releasing his name, Valery Zaluzhny's name, into the press, saying that he's the one that's likely to replace Zelensky. We really don't have. There's a couple of other names, but we're really not sure. What I do agree with Hersh on is that there is an attempt to really replace Zelensky, pushed by Washington. However, I think this is also in an effort to dismiss their failures. And I also think there's going to be some sort of attempt to bait Russia into some sort of negotiation, which is the couple other things that we'll get to. But I just want to hear your thoughts on this, Matt. Why is this happening now? And, why suddenly we're seeing this mass media just seeming like collusion against Zelensky, their guy that they've upheld and really hailed for the longest time. Now they're like turning on him. I think that signals something.
Yeah, so when we first saw the protest break out, my first instinct was optimism about the fact that the media, the mainstream, wasn't there at the start. It didn't seem like it. It seemed like this was being kind of like released on the sideline, and we thought here, look, this is a good sign that the people are revolting right now. And then of course we're asking the question is, well, why now? The more the mainstream started to get their attention on this story, and the more we kind of saw this, it's almost this coordinated plan, like you mentioned, that the narrative is changing from the mainstream point of view, and that to me is the red flag here, Fee, because it seems to me that if you elevate these protests right now, this is the time they want to switch them out and continue this proxy war even longer than you could if you just let him fall on his own and then this thing kind of ends. But if they have the ability to switch him out and blame it on some strange, like Zelensky went crazy, he decided to start getting rid of these anti-corruption laws. But like, look at his history. He's been consistent the entire way. It's been anti-democratic the entire way. The people have been angry the entire way. So there's been plenty of Ukrainians that have been pissed off about not having an election. He just canceled the election last time. And the fact that, we've seen journalists get targeted. We've seen churches be targeted. We've seen just time and time again, not to mention pulling people out of their homes and forcing them to die. This has been going on forever. So why would that media now look at these protests as if it's some unique thing happening right now? Like all of a sudden, Ukrainians are concerned about Zelensky's ability to lead. They've been concerned the whole time. I think it is about a switch up. And I do think if you do that switch up, you can blame him independently on the failures and then keep this proxy war going even longer when they make this switch out. Now, as far as the peace talks, this third round coming up, I mean, it's so hard to be optimistic here when we've seen failure after failure. 2-hour phone call here, another hour phone call there. Trump's making this happen. It doesn't seem like we're heading to this finish line anytime soon. And it might be another way to manufacture more public consent, that any problem we've seen has been uniquely the problem of Zelensky. And now we can get business back as usual because we have to get back to stopping Putin from taking over the world. And that's where we're at, I think, on the public, manufactured consent element of it.
Yeah, well, certainly NATO is there. I mean, Europe has been pushing still to continue these attacks against Russia, these sanctions against Russia, to continue giving weapons to Zelensky. I mean, in fact, the last meeting that we had, you're absolutely right, was a complete and total failure. And there was, here, we'll just go right into it. There was a meeting that failed and it lasted 40 minutes, right? Yeah. And it was absolutely useless, essentially, in everything. But let's go to that, Jayme. Let's go to that tweet thread, the one about Russia, Ukraine holding their third round of these peace talks. And there was said by the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, that there's no expectations that this is going to lead to anything. And that's essentially what happened. They were done in 40 minutes. Nothing of substance really was said. They said that the positive thing was humanitarian, meaning there's probably going to be an exchange of prisoners or something to that degree, but it's not going to be much of anything else. And so they met in Istanbul. They had these face-to-face discussions, and that's it. And then there was supposedly no other sign that there was going to be any other meeting after this. But then today, what Donald Trump said was that he is ready to hold a meeting with Putin and Zelensky, a trilateral meeting of sorts is what it's called. And I agree with you, Matt. Like, I think that there is like hard to be optimistic. I do think that, again, I think that Russia wants to end this war. I think that Russia wants to normalize on the political side relations with the US. They want to like finally they have zero desire to take all of Ukraine, unlike people think. They really they don't have that desire. And I think that they are going to continue on the military field until there is a substantial actual decision to really end this. But I don't think that it's a coincidence that we're seeing the possible removal of Zelensky manufacture along with these conversations. And I think it's interesting that you said what you said about it going even further, like continuing this, because if they replace Zelensky with somebody that's more military like, which Valerie Zaluzhny would be, there's a possibility that would happen. There's also a possibility that that person would likely be under the ownership of the United States, essentially, which I think is the likely scenario from what we're seeing. And if the United States says we're stopping this war, they're going to do it. And I think that's what the whole thing with Zelensky was, because he tried to then reinstate the laws partially because of all the bad the bad press he received and the criticisms he received. So he tried to pull back, which I thought was interesting. And it seems like to me like he was panicking, like thinking, oh God, what's going on, right? That kind of threw me off, because I'm like, okay, well, he may not even be aware that he's entirely, screwed, to say the least. So I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah, no, he's clearly like shaken up by this, because again, he's been able to get away with so much and not have any pushback. He's been this celebrity. He gets to show up all the time saying, "Give me more money, give me more money." We got these Sean Penn and these Ben Stiller type characters showing up and kissing, just bowing down at his knees, and like Sean Penn says, "Oh, here's an Oscar. I want you to take my Oscar, Zelensky, and melt it down into bullets so you can kill Russians with it." I mean, this is the most craziest stuff he's been part of, this theater piece where he gets no pushback from the West at all. And now I think it's kind of sudden for him to feel this change, and he's got to know the end is near. And that's why we saw a little of him taking steps back in this area. And now he's seeing the coverage, the mainstream coverage against him. He doesn't look too good at this point. And you know what? This is just like, it's starting to remind me of maybe the end of the last scene of Scarface, where it's like Pacino knows like at the end is near, and he looks up and he says, "The world is mine," but it's not sustainable. The hail of bullets is coming, and enjoy your last Coke binge, basically.
Yeah, well, I don't even, it's kind of an insult to compare Zelensky to Al Pacino, I guess, for a lot of people, but I get the comparison. Yeah, I mean, it could also be that Zelensky doesn't get replaced until after there is a negotiation, and then they replace him after that. That's also a possibility. But what it does seem is like there's something going on. I mean, we can't be exactly sure, but I don't, just because there's some sort of end to this, some sort of attempt at negotiation, doesn't mean that Washington isn't stepping it up in other theaters or in other ways to rail against Russia, because I think that that's an obviously the plan of the deep state that Trump has been pointing to. So the other thing that Trump discussed earlier was trying to have some sort of nuclear disarmament deal with the Russians. And I don't buy this, number one, because it's essentially something that we've always said, we've always talked about having some sort of peace negotiations with Russia. The New START treaty is going to expire soon. And so Trump was asked by a task correspondent if he was prepared to have that conversation, and he said that he was. And why don't we just go ahead and play the video? It's kind of hard to hear, Jayme, so you might want to put it up as high as you can for that. But he basically said that Washington needs to discuss the the expiration of the New START treaty and nuclear disarmament in Moscow. And he said this in an interview with a task correspondent. He also said, "This is not an agreement you want expiring. We're starting to work on that, and it's a problem for the world." So we can go ahead and go and play that, Jayme, so people can hear it.
I don't have a link to the video. I just have the article.
Oh, you don't have a link to the video? Okay, no. 1 second. Let me put it up. That should be there. Okay. Okay, it's on my X. I think that's where it's at. It's on my X, but I'll put it right here. Okay, there it is. It's kind of loud, so you can go ahead and play it pretty loudly. Yeah, I just find it interesting that all of this is happening. When these things happen, you have to look at the timing aspect of it.
You said repeatedly you would like to see further nuclear arms reductions between the United States and Russia. But the New START treaty is expiring in about 6 months and it cannot be legally extended. Do you intend to negotiate a new one?
It's a problem for the world. You know, we have restrictions and they have restrictions, as you know, on nuclear. That's not an agreement you want expiring. We're starting to work on that.
Do you want to do a new one?
That's a big problem for the world. When you take off nuclear restrictions, that's a big problem.
You said repeatedly you would like.
So, the treaty was like a commitment from both of them to reducing their strategic arms offensive for 7 years, so that 7 years after the treaty's entry into force, the total number of deployed intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine launched ballistic missiles, and heavy bombers would not exceed 700, and that is essentially going to expire. It's interesting this has all happened, but again, there is a push from Russian media right now and from several Russian officials that Trump is trying to genuinely find a solution to things. Now, obviously, there's also on the other end, you know, the knowledge that they know that Trump isn't necessarily in charge, right? And Epstein showed this, I mean, to a huge degree. But I do think that from Russia's end, they are intentionally trying to do something. Whether Washington becomes genuine about it, I don't think so. I don't think the United States is genuine about anything, even if they propose something. I don't see them ever stopping their siege against Russia, primarily because of the natural resources that exist, primarily because it's a barrier to China and its relationship also with Iran that's come into play most recently. So I don't really see this going into an era where anything is permanent. And but Zelensky's proposed removal, all of the protesting, all of the media kind of aligning with that narrative does tell me that there is at the very least an attempt to blame this on Zelensky and start over in one way or another, whether it's more war or whether it's some sort of negotiation to bait Russia into some sort of minimal truce. But it is really getting harder to see a way out of this. That's not more war for me, looking at the way things are with Russia, Ukraine. I feel like we've taken a lot of steps back where people thought this would be over by now. And it just simply hasn't.
Yeah, so the nuclear restriction deal being coming up to the end of its term is I believe this is an opportunity that this can be spun to the public that something has happened that's moved us closer to peace, when it's really just about extending this thing. And I believe it will get extended, and in fact that'll probably be the thing Trump puts his stamp on. It says, look what we accomplished. Now, the 7 years ago, it was his first term, right? So this is when that was already made. So that deal was a 7 year. So the clock is running out now. You extend this deal for 7 years, and then you present to the public that we're getting closer to peace, when you haven't done anything closer to peace. This is just nuclear restrictions. It has nothing to do with the arms that we're continuing to send to Ukraine, which we're doing. The last deal we heard last week was a $10 billion deal that Trump is saying we're going to have NATO pay for it, and it's going to go just more arms for Ukraine. So like this is still going to occur. The war's not coming to an end anytime soon. I think you actually predicted this, Fee, a few weeks back. You said this is about getting through Trump's term, get the next the next selected president in that will be the next face of the operation. It'll pretend to be taking on the deep state, and it'll just be right in line with that next presidential cabinet will be doing the same policy. And if it's not an indication now that people can't look at Trump's policy in Ukraine is exactly what Biden's is. Exactly. So this whole idea that you got somebody coming in to fix things and you know, we're going to end this in 24 hours. It's all a scam. And so I'm with you on this, that this is not, we're not going to end this thing anytime soon. It's just another opportunity to present to the public, look what we accomplished. And it's a stamp for Trump to say, you see that? I am a peace president. Thanks for that nomination, Netanyahu. I'm going to get that Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah. And again, because people are negatively now reacting to Donald Trump because he says one thing and then the next day you see, you know, the other thing. This is why you can't take too much stock in what he says and more so on what's actually happening. And you're very right. I mean, the New START treaty doesn't really affect what's happening right now. I mean, look at where we are. We're actually advancing towards nuclear war. We haven't, you know, reversed that in any way. We've actually advanced further. And one of the things that this administration does is to distract and divide, and also, just like any other recent administration, give false hope in order to change the narrative and manage it, essentially. And that pretty much takes us to the next thing, because Tulsi Gabbard is a figure that we've been talking about for a long time. And recently she was exposed even further as a tool of the deep state that she supposedly set out to go after, very much like Trump, but perhaps worse, because a lot of people saw her as far more intelligent and far more, I guess, to a degree, having a backbone and some sort of conscience. And when she turned around and pushed for war with Iran, in specifically going back on her statements, that was already a huge disappointment, I think, for a lot of people and for everybody else, like vindication as to who she really was. But now, after she's been humiliated by this administration, which is what I find interesting, she's bending over backwards to gain favor. And in one of the things she has done is taken the focus, the very, very honest betrayal that people have felt in regards to the Epstein case. And a lot of people say, well, it's just, you know, this is being weaponized by the right and it's not that big of a deal. But it actually, it's regardless of the Republican or Democratic aspect. It's the fact that Trump lied and gaslit his entire base, and they're responding to it. And now with that, we suddenly hear the rehabilitation of Russiagate, but from the perspective that the Democrats were completely and totally controlling this. It was a made-up Democratic hoax that was fabricated by Barack Obama, served to take down Donald Trump. And this is, of course, at the same time that Donald Trump's popularity, credibility, and everything else has gone down the drain, not by everybody else, but his own supporters mostly. And so it's interesting to me that, yes, while the Democrats are clearly weaponizing this and clearly making it about Donald Trump regarding the Epstein case, when it's so much deeper than Donald Trump and it's so much deeper than any president or even than Jeffrey Epstein himself, what we're seeing is the Republicans, particularly the Trump administration, weaponize Russiagate now to dismiss the Epstein case. And I want to hear your thoughts on this, Matt, because I feel like both of these teams are trying to distract and dismiss and lose focus of the truth of really what the whole point of all of these things is. And then it just becomes this, once again, battle of red versus blue, and nothing of substance is getting discussed. So before I play the video, I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, no, this is an accurate summary that you're giving here. We have to give credence on one hand to Russiagate being a hoax. We've known the entire time. So this idea that it's just, we're discovering this now, and Tulsi just got the news that, you know, files went on her desk and she's like, uh-oh, we got to do something about this. So clearly it's a timing issue, but everything about it checks out. So how do we then take Tulsi seriously? Like you said in the beginning, you talked about Tulsi basically being thrown under the bus for the Iran nuclear situation, where Trump said on record I don't care what my national director of intelligence says. He says that I don't care. She says whatever she wants. I'm going to do what I feel like doing. And so everybody knows that happened. The mainstream journalist, quote unquote journalists that call Tulsi out on this, they have a right to call her out on that and suggest that, are you trying to save face here? Well, I look at it like this, and yeah, we want to see the clips here in a second, but I'll just say this. Both can be right at the same time. However, there's another element to this. It's not just Tulsi saving face. Tulsi is showing us what loyalty looks like. This is what loyalty looks like when you're part of a tribe. She was welcomed into this tribe. She says, I will do whatever you need me to do at the time you need me to do it. If you want to throw me under the bus, I'm a tool for you to do that. If you want me to come out in front and lead the charge to something like Russiagate, which is now Obama Russiagate, I will lead the charge to debunk that one and get justice there. Whatever you need me to do, I'm willing to do it, and I've demonstrated to your base and to the population that's watching this live unfolding that I will do whatever it takes. But again, she can be right about what she's putting out there. At the same time, all this else can be true as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's nuance, and again, nuance is the hardest thing to discuss, and it makes our job 10,000 times harder. But there's nuance in a lot of these things. It's not as simple as the black and white aspect. So let's go ahead and play the video. Let me just read the first caption. The House report details information Russia had on Hillary Clinton, including DNC emails that detail evidence of Hillary's psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. So this particular cut of what Tulsi said is so ridiculous. It's very just... I really hate Hillary Clinton. I mean, she's one of those people I hate, but it's just kind of like completely and totally just beneath. It just feels like it's useless. Like it doesn't, what is this about really? What are you trying to do? You're trying to start some partisan, war. This is not about that. And as you said, Russiagate has been going on for a long time. I mean, guys, it's almost 10 years old, this thing. Why are suddenly these people, a lot of these, and I didn't put them all in here, but there's a lot of people, and I put some of them, saying, oh my God, Tulsi deserves credit. Look what she's done. This is wonderful. This is what we should be talking about. And I'm talking about this to tell you that this is another distraction, and that's my opinion. And the liberals might be saying that, but they're saying it for different reasons. They're saying it because they're trying to essentially make it about Trump, and these people are trying to make it about Hillary or about Obama and all of that. And we're telling you it's not about that. It's about the entire thing. It's about the machine. And this is why it's so enraging. Let's just hear what Tulsi said, and then we'll go from there.
The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had, on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote unquote clear preference for Trump.
Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so so it's okay. She didn't need to go that far with the let's do a psychological evaluation of Hillary Clinton. However, that's part of her presentation, because remember the historical context here. Tulsi was personally attacked by Hillary Clinton back at the DNC fallout, where she nobly and bravely stood up to Kamala Harris on that stage. She's the one that knocked out, punched Kamala Harris off the stage of the DNC. And Hillary Clinton had to come back and get the back of her people, because there was a time when they wanted Kamala to be the person. We were going to do that, but Tulsi took care of that. Said, no, you're out of here. Hillary Clinton went around, did the round. She went on The View. She went on all the different networks, and she said that Tulsi is a traitor, is a Putin puppet. She said this about Tulsi Gabbard with no basis whatsoever, and so that probably never left her. And so you can see this. So there's a lot of things going on here in this speech. So she's revealing real facts that we've had for years. This is almost 10 years old, like you said. So we have this information. She's putting real information out there. She's also showing the loyalty I mentioned earlier, the loyalty to Trump, that even if Trump throws me under the bus, I still have his back. And then this is the third part of it, which is, I haven't forgotten what you did to me, Hillary. I'm going to go so far on you, you're not going to know what hit you. But again, one more historical context here. Hillary Clinton and Obama, we have this information. These are the people that took hold of the DNC and used it for their political motivations to have a plan to basically eliminate democracy from the 2016 election and instill Hillary Clinton in office. Now, we know on one hand that there is a uniparty. It functions to create this impression that it's red versus blue. But that example is one of those where ego comes into play, and Hillary really, you can bet she really wanted to be president, and that didn't happen, and she's furious about it. So this is an ongoing feud that gets very personal in this regard. But the more important element is that everything Tulsi's saying is true. Should she have included it? Probably not. Not that part about her psychological state at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I have no sympathy for Hillary, but I guess my issue with it, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we remember Russiagate for sure, and we remember how it was entirely fabricated, and all of what she's saying is true in terms of Obama, in terms of Hillary, and their fabrications that they did. But again, all of this has been put out there and known for a long time. My issue is the putting it out there now, as Donald Trump is getting hammered about the Epstein files, and he's completely just being an asshole about it, gaslighting everybody about it, not providing any reliable information, or pretty much any information that comes from there will be, we know, redacted or in some way tainted. It's not going to be what the people wanted. And so now people are being led by his little influencers to focus on Tulsi Gabbard's gigantic revelation that everybody already knew about 7-8 years ago at the very least. So like, it's just kind of like, for me, it's the manipulation behind it, right? I agree with everything she's saying. Everything she's saying is actually factual. And it's, yes, Russiagate was entirely a hoax, and it was bullshit, and it was pushed by the Democrats for political manipulation and for political expedience. Yes, all of that. But this is what a lot of independent media have been saying for freaking years. And to put it out there now as if you're breaking some sort of news about it in an effort to give Trump points, as if his administration is revealing the deep state, because this is the commentary that's coming from these people, that Trump is exposing the deep state, that Tulsi Gabbard is exposing the deep state, when they literally want to wage war in Iran, when they literally are waging a war, a proxy war against Russia, and when they clearly want to do the same with China. And there's so much going on, and that is extremely pro deep state from these people, and the manipulation, the PR behind it, to make it look like it's a big something when it's a nothing burger, because everybody knew this already, is just like, that's what I have a problem with. And you know, that's why I do think it's a distraction in and of itself, in favor, of course, of Trump and fixing a lot of the PR damage he's received so far. Go ahead.
No, I would tag on to it. Like, listening to Tulsi say some of those words, not necessarily the Hillary Clinton psychological problem, but just saying this is what happened. We have the documentation. These are crimes that were committed. Just the suggestion that Obama is going to be put in handcuffs and Hillary's going to be put in handcuffs, that feels good to a lot of people. Just that sentiment. So it's a moment that was created, a theatrical moment that was created, even though based on facts. but just for that moment, not for the actual conclusion of them going away in handcuffs. We know they're not going to get arrested. Just, spoiler alert to everyone. Nobody ever goes to jail. Nobody in power ever goes to jail. Every once in a while, you have the fall guy. You got in Hollywood, you got your Harvey Weinstein. You did have your Epstein, but I guess he had to kill himself over a crime he never committed, apparently, because now there are no files never existed ever. Maxwell's in jail for whatever, I don't know, not doing a crime, I guess. But those little few examples are just little moments of distractions where we were like, okay, this person takes a fall, everything goes back to normal. But overall, when you look at a situation like this, we're telling you up front, like, it's not a prediction. This is a fact. Mark my words, Obama and Hillary are not going to be put in handcuffs. So why is this happening? It's for the feel-good moment that Tulsi can stand up there and say these words. And then, like you said, the distraction from Epstein, it's getting the MAGA base excited. Something's happening. Justice is going to be done. Well, it's not justice just to say something. Justice is when people are actually held accountable for their actions in a court of law, which we never get. And if you want one more example of it, just go back to Obama coming into office in 2009 and saying, guys, you know how I'm a lawyer and everything, and you know how I campaigned on holding people accountable for Iraq and for illegal torture programs. Well, I decided that I don't lawyer that way anymore. I like to look ahead into the future, not into the past. So we know this time and time again. It's just examples of feel-good moments, but nobody ever pays a price. And again, like you said, this is ultimately just about the timing and the distraction of the real thing, which is Epstein. And we should all be talking about that from both sides, from all sides, and not stop until something's done about that.
Yeah, exactly. And people aren't talking about that, or are talking about it less, or at least that's the image they want to create. And so there was this opinion by this journalist named Solomon Reports that was on Systems Update. And I want you guys to hear this. So I'm just going to read the headline really quickly. So Trump's critics say that Tulsi Gabbard's latest Russiagate revelations are a convenient distraction from the administration's botched handling of the Epstein files. But journalist Solomon Reports tells Aaron Mate that this new Russiagate info should not be ignored. So let's hear what he says, and then I'll hear your thoughts on what he says.
This conspiracy theory that Trump and Russia were in cahoots was so dominant, so widespread, and so mainstream. I mean, the New York Times and the Washington Post gave themselves Pulitzers for advancing this conspiracy theory that I'm not expecting very much accountability from them. But I am wondering if you have thoughts on, well, first of all, the way Tulsi Gabbard rolled this out. There is a criticism that she conflated in her messaging vote hacking and email hacking. And I think that criticism actually is correct. I do think she conflated that.
I think that's right. I agree with you.
Yeah. It doesn't change the fact that she revealed important stuff, but the messaging, I think, has been off. And then you have the fact that Trump is dealing with this Jeffrey Epstein controversy, and there's anger even among some of the MAGA faithful that there have not been the disclosures that they were promised. And I'm wondering, do you think that the fact that Trump has been hesitant to address the Jeffrey Epstein issue and told people to move on, that might undermine the ability to get out and to convince people that this Russiagate stuff really is important? Because what critics will do here is say that Trump and Gabbard are just releasing this to deflect from the Jeffrey Epstein mess.
Yeah. Listen, Donald Trump has been worried about Russia collusion since 2017. So it's going to be hard to say he suddenly got interested in it because of Epstein, right? He has cried about this, and rightly so, for 8 years. And he's done everything in his power to get the American people the truth, because he felt victimized, and he felt the American people were victimized. He said that to me several times in interviews. And he doesn't want another president ever to face what he faced. So I don't think you can say, boy, Donald Trump ramped this up because he wanted to make the Epstein thing. The Epstein crisis exists because of bad messaging. Pam Bondi was more interested in getting in front of the camera before getting her facts straight before she got in front of the camera, and so she messed it up. I think in some way Tulsi Gabbard's rollout on Saturday and some of the messaging in the Friday, Saturday, Sunday timeframe was a little messed up. But at the end of the day, they have released really significant evidence. And we elitists inside the belt, we worry about all the messaging and stuff. The American people just want to know, were they defrauded? And I think in Tulsi Gabbard, in Pam Bondi, in Kash Patel, President Trump, and the others, we now have a body of evidence that could answer that question for history, could answer that question for the courts. And it would be a crying shame if the normal processes of the Justice Department aren't followed in this next step. There is grounds for a criminal conspiracy case and a strike force to be named. Let's see if that happens. I think history will not judge the Epstein matter and this matter in Tulsi on the fumbles. They did make fumbles. I don't disagree with you. I totally agree with you. They'll judge them on, did they handle the evidence right and did we do the right thing? That judgment will come in the next few weeks. We'll know whether Pam Bondi and Tulsi Gabbard get us to the right place or not. Kash Patel has started the process. Let's see if it gets to the right place like every other person who's been accused of a crime would face in similar circumstances. Let's not treat it differently. If they treat it the same way as other criminal skells, I think the American people will be forgiving and remember this as a good period.
Okay. Matt, I want to hear your thoughts. I'm just going to quickly say, I don't think this was a fumble in terms of the Epstein thing. I mean, it was in terms of, yes, it was a complete failure, but it was an intended failure. Like they intended not to release this information. So when you call it a fumble, it kind of just alleviates some of any guilt. But so this is not intentional. It is intentional. They don't want to release the information on these files. They're telling people that they don't exist. They're telling people that there's nothing there. And so it's not just they messed up. And I hate it when politicians use that idea that, oh, it was just a set of mistakes that we just didn't follow through. No, there was an intention to lie to people. There's an intention to form a different narrative. There's an intention to gaslight and an intention to shift and say something else in order to cover up whatever you want to cover up. There is intent in that, and these people should be held accountable for that. So why that Tulsi Gabbard and Donald Trump are now coming up with this? And notice how they frame it like, oh, yeah, the Democrats are going to say that this is because of that. But it's not a Democrat or Republican issue. It's the fact that this is exactly what it is. It's the fact that this is happening now instead of it could have happened before. It could have happened day one when Donald Trump was there. It could have happened a long time ago. And the same way that now the Democrats are crying about children and care about pedophiles suddenly, where they never gave a damn for the last few years until they could use it against Trump. It's the same type of mentality. And that's why I think it's really just, it really gets to me because it's like, we're just being manipulated from all ends. And people are still taking this partisan stance that, oh, because, the Donald Trump they hate him. So therefore they're just going to say this is a distraction. But what Tulsi has uncovered, or what they've uncovered, is such a big deal, and that the American people are going to get answers. We're not getting answers though. This has long been known information. So what exactly are we getting? And as you said, Matt, none of these people in power are ever going to go to jail. Obama and Hillary Clinton are not going to go to jail. So like, what is the entire point of this other than this idea is to give accolades and to celebrate what the Trump administration and Tulsi Gabbard are doing when they're in fact doing the opposite of it?
Yeah. No, I don't agree with this. The guest on with Aaron Mate on Glenn's show at all, because he's giving us only two outcomes. One, that Tulsi and everyone's going to do the right thing and see this to the end. Kash Patel's ready to go. It's like, how many times we have to hear this same story of the team is meeting, they're putting things together, they're right. I mean, we see this, it's a fail every time. And so he's saying it's either that and the Trump base forgives Trump for Epstein because he goes through with this, or they fail and then everybody's upset. But there's a third option, that we just enjoy this moment. That's the whole point. Tulsi said this out loud. It's been said, it's on the record. That's the outcome. And then people, because of our short-term memories, we forget, oh, the Epstein thing, that was so long ago. Look at Russiagate. It was so long ago. So it's about the moment, the theater of the moment. The reality is, I 100% agree with you. When the word fumble is thrown around so casually, it's sending the wrong message about how power works. And what we know about fumbling is that's a very rare thing. It'd be like we talk about COVID, right? Oh yeah, Fauci just fumbled when he gave us the instructions, and Biden just fumbled when he told us it was a pandemic of the unvaccinated. So these aren't fumbles; these are deliberate messagings that are put together in advance to distract people, to confuse people, to lie to people, to get them to comply. And that's what Epstein was. And we need to go back to Epstein and say, there's a reason it happened this way. It was by design. And now we're all distracted with Russiagate. There's not going to be an outcome here that's going to be, it's going to actually lead to justice, as we said before. But I'm going to add in one more point that nobody's talking about, because this is how we connect the last story, the Ukraine situation, because you got your base also upset. So Trump's base is also upset that he campaigned on ending the Ukraine war in 24 hours. That didn't happen. Now you're pushing Russiagate debunkingness, which needed to happen 8 years ago. It's okay. So you want to do it now. Let's connect those issues. Hey, Trump, do you think that Russiagate scam happened because independently Hillary Clinton had an ego and wanted to be president? That's one factor. That's not the whole factor. The main reason it happened was the war machine that wanted to push this proxy war in Ukraine. As we know, we should go back. The most important part of the timeline is after Trump won the election in 2016, you had Lindsey Graham, John McCain, Klobuchar going back into Ukraine and saying 2017 is going to be the year that we get aggressive against Putin. That's what we're going to do. So they wanted to do it with Hillary. It didn't work out. So they wanted to try it with Trump. It didn't really work out with that either. They got extended and they had to wait till Trump was out of office, Biden is in, and then they could really sell this Ukraine war to the people. So if Trump would be forced to see that connection and put that on the table as well, when Tulsi is going through the list of nefarious activities that happened behind the American people's back, if you wanted to add that to the list, then you could actually hold Trump accountable and say, hey, listen, you remember that proxy war that was illegal? That was also about manufacturing consent of the public to hate Putin, to be afraid of Putin. He's rigging our elections and he wants to take over the world. This is how you manufacture the public consent for war. We connect those two and then really hold them accountable. That would be the thing I think we need to do now, not sit here and think this one-dimensional outlook that there's only two possibilities and we're hoping for the best. We hope they don't fumble this one. Come on, Kash Patel. Come on, Tulsi, you can do it. No, that's the simple way of looking at it. We want to go further and get real answers. And again, we have to not stop talking about Epstein.
Yeah, no, those are very good points, especially about the war in Ukraine, because let's go back to 2014. That was the Maidan. And then after that, it became, the Democrats and the Republicans and the Democrats again, and so on and so forth. And it's really continued. It's never stopped. And by the way, Donald Trump did give weapons to Ukraine. That was the weapons that were pushed by him and allowed by him that really facilitated more of this war. And that's rarely talked about as well. The fact that he was willing and able to do that. And now, is he actually trying to end the war in Ukraine? Is he actually taking actions to really expose that, okay, well, Russiagate was a hoax because they wanted to go into war in Ukraine. How about I do something different than that? He's actually done the opposite. And so, it's kind of like, where does this hold? It doesn't really hold water in those terms. So yeah, I disagree with everything that guy said. And really just the last thing I want to show on this is this tweet of somebody that's really angry because she's pretty much, Tulsi Gabbard has just endlessly just been distracting, talking about, oh, we're exposing this, we're exposing that, kind of showing like she's trying to do this job of being the one that's going to expose things and take accountability. But in reality, she's pretty much serving as a huge distraction. And she said, this person said about Tulsi Gabbard, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, nobody gives a fuck about the MLK Jr. assassination files, which is nothing but your latest attempt to divert attention away from the pedo president with what is now the largest political cover-up in American history. Release the Epstein files. Now, a lot of Democrats are obviously jumping onto this, but I think it's an interesting thing that we need to point out. While the Democrats might be weaponizing this and might be using it to say, look at Donald Trump, look how much of a pedophile he is, look who he is. there are a lot of people too that are saying that this is just a right-wing thing, that they're just obsessed with this idea. There's no evidence of the Epstein files. I think Michael Tracy has said that at numerous lengths. Like, there's no evidence of this. All of the witnesses and the people that testified against Jeffrey Epstein, they're all crazy women. They all lied about it, and it's like, but where's the evidence that they lied about it? Why is this suddenly a thing now? Why are we suddenly now not given any evidence that there was an actual investigation, and we're forced to accept that? Yet on the other hand, we are just automatically not going to believe not just multiple testimonies, but the fact that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were in jail. So like, it really is a huge, gigantic gaslight. And it is reverse Russiagate, as some people have said, right? It is like, I think what angers me the most is just how easily they think they can manipulate people, and how just many times it does work that way, which is the unfortunate part.
I mean, just seeing that tweet about MLK files, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, you guys, you're not giving us anything we already don't know. We already know this stuff. I mean, they tried that with the JFK files. Look, we see the redacted, keep Israel out of it. Yeah, we knew that already. And it's like, what's next? The 9/11 files? Tulsi, you're going to tell us about? Oh, you're going to conveniently leave out the dancing Israelis. Probably because you're a Zionist. So there's that. It's like, come on, like how many times you're going to say this just in? We got some new information for you. If anything, this is another indicator that both sides keep playing the theater of the situation and presenting to us that the other side were the ones working against you. We're the ones that are going to show you what's real. And it's like you keep changing the story. If anything, this tweet about MLK. The Democrats were the ones that, do you remember the time when the Democrats were the ones that were skeptical of the government 3-letter agency, like FBI and CIA? The Democrats were the ones that said MLK was killed by the FBI. Now it's like, well, wait a minute, who was pushing that? Now who's pushing it? And then you got the Epstein reversal, right? Where you're like, it's a Democratic conspiracy. No, it's not. They weren't pushing that one. So everything's reversed. Everything's backwards. But again, these are just theatrical moments. We're not going to get real answers from these, because then the question goes back to timing. Why now, Tulsi? Why the MLK tweet now? It doesn't make any sense. We've always wanted to know this stuff. We always wanted to have the truth about JFK, the truth about 9/11, the truth about Epstein. You're just recycling them one after the next, and neither side is working to get to the destination of true transparency. That we know for sure. That's the one thing we know for a fact. Nobody is working for true transparency for the American people.
No, that's exactly it. Nobody. And because they're not, it's about just one-upping each other and showing the superficial elements of whatever truth that they're trying to manipulate the public into believing. And a lot of the times these political things take precedence, unfortunately, over what's actually happening legislation-wise. And one of those things, Matt, that I think a lot of people haven't been paying attention to is Trump's giveaway to big tech, to big technocratic elements. And this is, I think, the other big thing for many of the MAGA, for many of his supporters, and many who voted for Donald Trump, thinking that at the very least he was going to be against censorship, he was going to be for free speech, he was going to be the guy that's going to stop the surveillance state. They thought that that's what he was going to do. Trump talked about a long time ago. He talked about Assange. He talked about pardoning Assange. He talked about doing all sorts of things regarding free speech. And then he never actually followed through with it, which is not surprising. But a lot of people thought he would. And when it comes to the last few months of the Trump administration, we've seen, of course, the establishment of this technocratic surveillance, I guess I would say, group within the Trump administration, led by the likes of Palantir, DARPA, and of course you have Elon Musk, who was a huge part of that. And then even when he was ousted, there's still that whole Doge thing essentially became a centralized form of a giveaway to Silicon Valley. And there was the big, beautiful bill that we went through on this show a few weeks ago. But now the White House also released on July 23rd this Winning the AI Race, America's AI Action Plan. Now imagine what people are going through right now in the States. There's high inflation for most people. Things are expensive. Salaries are not aligning with the price of things. These are things that I've noticed since I've been in the United States. And people are actually really maybe not as vocal about it, but when you talk to everyday people, they're sick of the war and they're sick of Israel's interference in the United States. And this is one of the things I think everybody from left to right, whatever, can unite on. They're sick of Israel's influence in the United States. They're sick of all of this just incoming, what seems like more of the big brother aspect that Trump was supposed to be against. And so Trump comes in with this, right? This January executive order on removing barriers to America's leadership in AI. Winning the AI race will usher in a new golden age of human flourishing, economic competitiveness, and national security for the American people. And I'm just going to go through some of this, Matt, and then we'll talk about it. So this is a plan that identifies over 90 federal policy actions across the pillars, including accelerating innovation, building American AI infrastructure, and leading in international diplomacy and security that the Trump administration will take in the incoming weeks and months. So some of the key policies I'll just outline because this is like 30 pages. Among them are exporting American AI. The Commerce and State Department will partner with the industry to deliver secure full stack AI export packages, including hardware models, software applications, and standards to America's friends and allies around the world. Again, this is part of the big, beautiful bill. We know that that's going to be our focus to combat our quote unquote enemies. Now, there's also the promoting rapid build out of data centers, expediting and modernizing permits for data centers and semiconductor fabs, as well as creating new national initiatives to increase high demand occupations like electricians and HVAC technicians. Enabling innovation and adoption, removing onerous federal regulations that hinder AI development and deployment, and seek private sector input on rules to remove. So essentially, deregulating any sort of barriers that allow us to rapidly build up this technology, which is extremely dangerous, I might add. Upholding free speech and frontier models. This one's interesting. Let's see if that's something that will actually happen. Updating federal procurement guidelines to ensure that government only contracts with frontier large language model developers who ensure that their systems are objective and free from top-down ideological bias. So the systems that we have in place right now are definitely not objective, even if they say they are. And so, yeah, I don't buy any of that at all. But they also talk about America's AI Action Plan is a decisive course to cement U.S. dominance in AI. And this is Trump prioritizing innovation, powering a new age of American leadership in science, technology, and global influence, galvanizing federal efforts to turbocharge innovation capacity, build cutting-edge infrastructure, and lead globally to ensure we thrive in the AI era. Later on, they talk about how this is going to transform the world and our military power, and it's necessary to continue our dominance in the world, including, of course, going after China, Russia. They talk about competing with the adversaries, and they say this is as important as the space race. This is what they've been talking about. So it's a 30-page document. So if you guys have a chance, go ahead and take a look at it. But right off the bat, Matt, what do you think this means for us as the American people, like in terms of everything else that we know about the Trump administration's ties to big tech now and Silicon Valley?
I mean, this is one of the most dangerous declarations we've seen on the White House website, I think, in our lifetimes, and no one's talking about it. I mean, this is basically the breakdown that you did for us, Fee. You went through that big, beautiful bill and showed us the numbers of the amount of funding that's going into AI, going into military spending, surveillance state, all of these elements that this company Palantir would. This is all for Palantir, which is deliberately a military arm and a surveillance arm of the U.S. government now that they're having full control of all the government agencies, everybody in a super database computer. And when you have the head, Alex Karp, openly telling us a 3-front war is coming to Iran, China, and Russia. If I'm in China, Iran, and Russia right now, I'm looking at this AI action plan is literally a declaration of war against the entire planet, specifically those 3 regions, because it's talking about implementing our wrath. Like every one of these bullet points you just went through, these are all aggressive actions. We're going to export American AI. We're going to rapidly build it out in our data center. So we're going to force our way into the rest of the planet. We're going to enable innovation and adoption. No, that's not accurate. But the last one I think is the worst one of all. The upholding free speech in frontier models. This is what Alex Karp talks about openly. He brags about it, that we have to show our competitors, enemies, whatever you want to call them, anybody that stands in our way. And that just doesn't include Iran, Russia, and China. That includes journalists, anybody outspoken, has something to say. What we're doing right now, having a conversation, this is considered dangerous. And you have to teach these people, that would be us, teach us a lesson that we can't challenge what you're up to, because that would be considered a threat. So now we have to look at the free speech, the silencing of free speech that we're seeing in all the Western countries right now, not just on Free Palestine, but any sort of critique against the military occupation, anything that Israel, the Greater Israel Project, but anything that Palantir, specifically Palantir's up to, is now going to be included in the you can't say Free Palestine because it's an act of war against Israelis. Well, it's an act of war against anybody that calls themselves the good guys. You're standing in their way, and Alex Karp has no problem punishing you because, as he says, quote, well, I'm paraphrasing, but as he says, anything we do is not going to be anywhere near as bad as what they do. So we can do whatever we want to silence them. And we, Fiorella, we are them, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, we are them. That's the unfortunate part. I think the scariest parts about this is a lot of it is for our external enemies, but it's actually not. It's actually for us as well, because as we've indicated, for example, the technology that is being used as surveillance tech, a lot of it coming from Israel tech, Israel surveillance, is that it's being used to counter the illegal immigration in the border that's being used on these detention camps, is going to be used on us, and it already is. It doesn't differentiate. It doesn't decide, oh, you are an American citizen, so we're not going to take your data and use it against you. The fact that there has been already this giveaway to Palantir to basically have massive amounts of data on us. And by the way, I didn't put this on there, but there's also a gigantic push in our airports now that is going to happen very soon to go to full scale just biometric ID. And that's not just happening in the US, it's happening in Mexico, and it's happening all over the world. And the reason it's happening all over the world is also because the way we are acting with AI and the way we look at China doing it, we're there. It becomes like this space race, right? It becomes like we're competing to see who has the most advanced AI, who has the most AI that can pretty much rule and take over. Well, if China and then Russia, because I know Russia is also very big on AI, are looking to compete with the United States, they're also going to amp up their AI production and their AI stuff. And the thing is, as Americans, we can rightfully criticize the United States because we are, we can say, well, that's not good over there either. But we can say in the United States because we are effectively already rendered powerless before AI. Now, imagine having AI. Imagine having an entire biometrics surveillance system where we just don't have any access to our funds if we say the wrong thing. They shut down our banks. They did just shut down the bank accounts of 2 UK pro-Palestinian groups by the way. And all of this is happening at the same time at very, very, very quick speed. But the geopolitics is sort of taking precedence. So everybody's concentrated on the geopolitics, but like the legislation is being implemented there. So we don't have any recourse to fight this. So we have no way to like say, oh, okay, well, if I can't say something about Palestine, maybe I'll just shut up about it, you know, and keep going. If I can't say something against Israel, maybe, you know, I'll just kind of keep it on the DL for a little bit. I think that's where people are going to head to, or it's going to go the other way where people actually wake up and say, okay, this is awful. This shouldn't be allowed. But the geopolitics aspect of everything is distracting us from a lot of the legislation. And I'm not saying it's not important, the geopolitical things that are happening, but people also need to look at the things being implemented that directly actually impact your lives, because these are actual laws that they can refer to and say, no, but in document XYZ of XYZ, this is what is said, and this is what we're going to have to follow. And so we're coming to, I think, terms. People need to come to terms with the fact that this is the world now, and the entirety of our existence is going to go in this direction. And it's really going to be very few countries that aren't going in this direction. And it's also it's kind of like, oh, you move one step further, I'll go one step further too. It's like playing chicken. And I think ultimately humanity as a whole ends up being in danger of all of this, because if you can imagine this dystopian, science fiction imagery of the drone wars, right, in Star Wars, or you can imagine the fighting of all of that with robots and stuff. That's where we're going. I mean, this is not an exaggeration. And the problem is, in none of these scenarios do people have freedom of speech. Do people have freedom of expression, freedom of movement? Are people better off than they are now? And this is also just calls to memory the Catherine Austin Fitts interview recently that she did with Tucker Carlson, where she talked about this happening to people, talked about people being entirely just pushed out of the system and then having no recourse. So we've become also entirely dependent on a lot of the new technology. This is why I say, like, should you know AI? You should know it, you should understand it, but you shouldn't become dependent on it.
No.
Because that's exactly what they want. They're going to make it either expensive, or they're going to make you be so dependent on it that you can't live without it. And that is in and of itself, I think, also a danger.
Yeah, no, that's what we're learning about the way our brains are wired. Unfortunately, we've looked at the studies of how, you've seen these control groups versus the other ones I can't remember where the study was from, but they had the two groups where one is using all AI to regurgitate information and then present it, and then the other group isn't, and then they switch. And obviously, people who aren't, if you get too spoiled with it, you can't do it. You could probably assume that you can't. You're going to be dependent on it. How are you going to live without it? We have this problem with our directions, right? You use your Google Maps or your map to get to where you're going. You forget. Wait a minute. Remember when we used to have to find our directions on our own? Where our brains unlearn these things. It's pretty bad. So when you go back to it, you're worse off. So even if you say, I'm going to not use this anymore, you're worse off than you were before you started. And so this is what you're right. They want, they're conditioning us for this. And it's a scary world we're coming to. So I agree. We have to learn this stuff, but let's not be dependent on it by any means. We have to continue figuring out how to use our critical thinking skills as much as we can, because it's going to be harder and harder to do this in this new age we're coming to. Fee, can I add one more thing right now about the free speech problem? Because you're mentioning people being, rounded up in Europe, Germany, England. They're knocking on doors. Cops are arresting people for social media posts. So we're heading there here now. This is what's happening here right now. And the social media apps, which I think a lot of us do depend on as far as sharing information and getting, like, we know, how important, X is, even with our critiques on Elon, but we are able to share information in an honest way, the best we can. And you got YouTube, you have these different platforms that we look at that are all getting cracked down on right now. This is important. We reported this yesterday on our top censored news as the #1 story, but there is an act right now that is put into legislation, and it's pretty scary. It's called the Stop Hate Act. and it's a team up between the ADL and a bipartisan alignment between some House representatives. One of them is Gottheimer and Bacon from New Jersey, and out of New England, and that the two of them together, along with Jonathan Greenblatt, have presented this legislation, which will fine social media companies. So all those ones we're talking about, whether it's X or YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, they'll be fined $5 million every time they violate the not reporting terrorism on their platform. What's terrorism is anything that's anti-Israel, that they define it to be. So this is where we're at now. They're talking it as if we're going to work with social media companies. No, you're not working with them. You're forcing them into compliance and then fining them if they don't listen to you, what you define as terrorism, which, as we were talking about Alex Karp, anything that goes against what you want is considered an act of terror. So Free Palestine, act of terror. Anything against the AI takeover of Palantir, that's an act of terror. So we are heading to that direction, that what we're doing right now on this show, right now, Fee, is we're committing acts of terror, according to Jonathan Greenblatt at the ADL, and this legislation that is on the House floor right now called the Stop Hate Act. Be very afraid of that, because that's real and it's happening.
And that goes right along with everything that we've been talking about. I mean, it would be no surprise that it passes. You know, you have people like AOC voting for the dome. You have people like, you have these Democrats that are saying, oh, poor Palestinians, and then they continue to vote for funding for Israel. I don't see how that's going to be stopped. I would like to think that somebody out there will try to stop that. But I mean, things are getting pretty dire. And yeah, I mean, it is happening in the UK. It's happening in Europe, and I think it's going to happen here. And you're right. It's only a matter of time. And by the way, I have terrible news for some people also. I just want to jump in and say quickly that Pavel Durov and Elon Musk might reach a deal between each other, meaning that there's going to be likely a partnership between Telegram and XAI, which is actually terrible news for Telegram, because Telegram didn't really have that as much of a horrible algorithm. And if that happens, it honestly will be we've seen how manufactured and stuff X is, right? In spite of the fact that you're right, we can share things and stuff. It is very much algorithmically manipulated. And if that happens on Telegram, I don't know what to tell you. It's not going to be good.
Well, a lot of stuff we're getting on X is coming from Telegram. So people that's where Telegram, like you said, it's not corrupt as of now, where you're able to get actual information, take it off of there, put it on X, and get it to the right places. That's what we're seeing. So yeah, this changes. This is not good news. I'm hearing this from you right now. No. This is going to prevent us from being more, as honest as we can be on X, because we rely on Telegram as we share it over on X. That's very, very disturbing news, Fee. Oh my gosh, not good.
Yeah, there it is.
My gosh. Wow. Oh boy. We're heading towards this is Terminator. This is Minority Report. This is all the films that we were warned about. Hollywood showed us. It's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. They weren't predicting the future. They were telling us the future. That's what we all eating our popcorn and watching these sci-fi movies, thinking, oh, that's a fiction piece. No, this is where we're at right now. It's literally come to life. Oh my gosh.
That's funny. Yeah, this was just stated, I think, in May. He had stated that there was a deal, and then they've kind of been talking about it now more. So it's likely something will happen. We'll see. I know that Russia is intending to ban more Western apps, which I think unfortunately affects the majority of people there, and it really impacts them negatively. I understand why they're doing it, but at the same time, it's like people just hate that over there. And it makes it harder when you're working across, international borders and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot going on, but they seem kind of eager to get rid of certain things. And I know a lot of things haven't been functioning there either. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Matt, you have anything else that you want to share? Anything else going on right now?
No, we were having this discussion that just yesterday on the show that like it sucks that we have to be such doom and gloom these days. I mean, here we go. Every single thing is you thought this was good. No, it's not. It's like we're taking the air out of anything that's hopeful. But I mean, we try to stay hopeful. We try to fight back. I like the comparison to, if you guys remember the Gerard Butler in 300. You know, you take on the army, you take on the machine, and you're willing to die for it, but we're not going to go down with on our knees. We're going to go down fighting. And so I guess I don't know how to get any more positive than that right now, but that's what we do every day. And we have to keep these conversations going. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this hate speech, I guess, as Jonathan Greenblatt would call it, because it's very nice to have these conversations. So let's just keep doing them as long as we can, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, just a reminder, like, don't stop talking about Epstein files. Don't stop talking about Gaza. Don't stop talking about what's happening there. I mean, several children have just died of starvation there. I mean, the images are horrible. I'm not going to share them, but it's an ongoing genocide. There's no ceasefire that's going to happen. All of that has been blamed on Hamas not wanting it. It's just the same thing over and over again. And I just have to mention that because obviously that's happening. And as you said, yes, we hate to be all doom and gloom, but these are the realities of the world we live in, and we need to face the reality to further figure out how to exist in it, and then how to combat, a lot of these things that are happening. But that's it for today. I will be on Substack again, releasing some things. There's a video I recently released there all about Syria. With Vanessa, so check that out. And then I'm developing some stuff on Russia, Ukraine, the whole kind of set of things that have been happening the last few months, and that should be out shortly. And yeah, that's about it. We'll be back on Monday on TruthWire, Matt, and just let everybody know what you're up to.
Yeah, no, this is today should be interesting. It's Friday night at 7:30 Eastern, I believe. I'm going to be on with Nick Cruz on RBN. It's first time I'm on there, so we'll be able to get out to a new audience with him. He's been on our show a lot, so this is a good opportunity. Have these conversations and let everyone know that it's about a community of people doing this and bringing audiences together, because a lot of times audiences will stick on one and they don't know that there's more. So there's more of us out there, and we're all doing this good work here. And other than that, the next week I guess we'll be back on Homeless Left on Tuesday, and I think we have Garland Nixon coming on. So that's awesome. Just keep the conversations going and keep doing TruthWire is awesome. I love having these conversations with you, Fee, on here, and we just keep doing it and keep doing the good work. And I look forward to your Substack as well.
All right, that's it. Thanks so much, Matt, and thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in with us. Make sure to share, like, and all the good stuff, please, for us, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Have a good weekend.